And Menelaus of the fair hair answered her, saying, Verily all this tale, lady, thou hast duly told. Ere now have I learned the counsel and the thought of many heroes, and travelled over many a land, but never yet have mine eyes beheld such a man of heart as was Odysseus, such another deed as he wrought and dared in his hardiness even in the shapen horse, wherein sat all we chiefs of the Argives, bearing to the Trojans death and doom. Anon thou camest hither, and sure some god must have bidden thee, who wished thee to bring thee glory to the Trojans. Yea, and godlike Deiphobus went with thee on thy way. Thrice thou didst go round the hollow ambush and handle it, calling aloud on the chiefs of the Argives by name, and making thy voice like voices of the wives of all the Argives. Now I and the son of Tydeus, and goodly Odysseus, sat in the midst and heard thy call. And verily we twain and had desire to start up and come forth, or presently answer from within. But Odysseus stayed and held us there, despite our eagerness. Then all the other sons of the Achaeans held their peace, but Anticlus alone was still minded to answer thee. Howbeit Odysseus firmly closed his mouth with strong hands, and so saved the Achaeans, and held him until such time as Pallas Athena led thee back. Wow, okay. Folks, we talked yesterday about the complications of Helen, and let's do some application today of this, because Menelaus' story is one that is difficult if you are interpreting this for our big screen adaptation, our mini series, our prestige drama. So Menelaus here, even though he doesn't give all of the details, is talking about the Trojan horse episode of the Trojan War. They build a horse made of wood. All of the Greeks are hiding in its belly. They provide it to the Trojans outside the gates. They bring it into the gates. When everyone is drunk and merry and perhaps asleep, the Greeks emerge and begin killing everybody. It's an ambush attack, right? We know the story of the Trojan horse by now. We've all had a virus on our computers at some point. But what Menelaus is saying here, very broadly, is that Helen, not once, not twice, but 3 times, thrice thou didst go around the hollow ambush, that's the Trojan horse, and handle it, calling aloud on the chiefs of the Argives by name, and making thy voice like the voices of the wives of all the Argives. So Menelaus is counteracting Helen's story from yesterday, saying, yeah, okay, you say that you didn't give away Odysseus' disguise, but 3 times when we were in the belly of the Trojan horse, you were going around pretending to be the wives of all of the men inside the horse to try to get them to talk. And that if it weren't for Odysseus shutting us all up, it would have worked and given us away, and would have, he doesn't say this, but it would have inevitably led to their slaughter, essentially. So how do we apply this to our prestige drama adaptation? We can put it on page, right? Okay, we see the men sweaty, gathered together in the, like maybe the hull of a ship, it looks like, the belly of this horse. They're all sitting quietly, not making a sound. You can see the sword hilts, any kind of dangling buckle, something that might give away their disguise at any point. A cough, the cracking of a knee, if they're getting a little stiff in there. Anything at all might cause suspicion. That's a very visual sequence that I could see being brought out. But then on page I could see it being from on the inside of the horse again, just the names of the men being called out. The men inside of it by what sounds like their own wives. And I would maybe shoot this in a way that makes it seem like it's hot and sweaty in there. Are they delusional? Is this a hallucination? Are they starting to let the pressure get to them? Are they cracking and they're hearing the voices of their wives and forgetting where they are, about to cry out? And only Odysseus, with the steel-trap mind, is preventing them from making a single false move. Okay, that all visually makes sense. But let's then shift gears and talk about let's say we weren't on the inside of the hull. Let's say we wanted to tell Helen's version of this, okay? Just going with what Menelaus has laid out here. Helen, after they've brought in the horse to the gates of Troy, is traipsing around it, doing the voices of all the wives of the Argives. Well, okay, great, that's on paper. We know the script. Now we are on set. We have our actress cast as Helen. We are the director. How are we telling her to play this? How are we choosing shots to depict whether or not this is playful? Is this intentionally trying to goad them into presenting themselves? What are her motivations for doing this? You can see how you can interpret it in being like, oh, she's evil and she's doing this for some unforeseen malevolent reason. Or you can play her as a bit more aloof and careless with her fun and games. Do we play her as someone who doesn't understand the consequences of her actions? These are all vastly different interpretations, and some can have more autonomy for her. Some can have can vilify her more, and we don't get the answers. We don't get the answers, and I find that interesting. That makes her such a compelling figure in this story, in the Iliad, just in mythology in general. But again, we don't see how Telemachus is responding to any of this yet. How is this going to change his trajectory to finding Odysseus or information that he's alive or dead? He now has two sides of the coin as far as what his father is doing, though I think regardless of Helen's story and Menelaus' story, there is a through line of Odysseus being a brave, courageous, intelligent warrior, or maybe warrior is a very specific thing, but soldier, player in this Trojan War. Something that I think Telemachus can be proud of. But let's find out more. Let's continue tomorrow. We had a short passage today. Maybe we'll get more answers tomorrow. So join me here then as we continue with Book 4 of the Odyssey. Okay, goodbye. Odyssey is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. The show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Odyssey, written by Homer. Theme song by Neuroflow. You can support this show and other shows like it by going to patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.